T1 Concept 2, Energy Flow in Ecosystems. So in this concept we are going to know how the energy flows in the ecosystem. How does energy flow through an ecosystem? Ecosystem is an area or community that contains living organisms and non-living things that interact with each other. Energy flow moves through an ecosystem from plants to animals and between animals when they eat each other. Then when living organisms die, their energy is returned to the soil. How hawks get energy? Hawks in ecosystem, they get energy from food. They eat different types of animals such as snakes, mice, fish, birds, squirrels, rabbits, and other small ground animals. They eat animals who eat plants, so they also depend on plants for energy. There are few predators that can attack hawks such as eagles or other hawks. When a hawk dies, it decomposes and its energy is returned to the soil. Energy flow in ecosystems. There is a relationship between sunlight and the energy we get from our food, because the energy we get from food originally comes from the sun. An ecosystem is a community that provides food, water, and shelter to all living organisms live in it. There are many different ecosystems on the earth, such as oceans, rainforests, desert, or the tundra. Animals don't choose the food they eat according to its taste, but they eat food according to what these animals' bodies need to survive, such as rabbit eats grass, birds eats butterflies and worms, and caracal eats mouse. The primary source of energy. The sun is the primary source of energy for all organisms on Earth to live, grow, and carry out life process. Plants can make their own food through photosynthesis process by absorbing the sunlight through their leaves and use the sun's energy to convert water and carbon dioxide into glucose. Animals, including humans, cannot make their own food, but they get energy from their food by eating plants only, eating other animals that eat plants, or eating both plants and animals. Living organisms can be classified according to their way of feeding into producers, consumers, and decomposers, and we are going to explain each of them. First, producers. They are organisms that can make their own food, glucose, sugar, and don't consume or feed on other plants or animals. Example, plants use energy from the sun to produce their own food by photosynthesis process. And note that nearly all of the producers on Earth are plants. So plants are producers because they can produce their own food. Second, consumers. They are organisms that eat other living organisms to get their energy because they cannot make their own food. Examples, there are three types of consumers, which are primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. First, primary consumers. They are animals that eat plants. Many insects are primary consumers because they eat plants. And secondary consumers, they are animals that eat the primary consumers, like birds. Birds are secondary consumers because they eat insects and other organisms that eat plants. Tertiary consumers, are animals that eat the secondary consumers. They are often large meat-eating animals like crocodiles. And finally, decomposers. They are organisms that carry out the process of decomposition by breaking down or decaying dead organisms. Example, fungi, bacteria, worms, and millipedes. Note, worms and millipedes produce waste rich in nutrients that increase the soil fertility for plant growth. So, decomposers are living organisms that feed into decaying dead organisms. So after the animal, say for example the crocodile that was a tertiary consumer, after it dies, the decomposers fed on this dead crocodile body, and they break down or decay the dead organism to feed on it. And many examples for decomposers like fungi, bacteria, worms, and millipedes. Food chains. It's a model that shows one linear set of feeding relationships and movement of energy between living organisms. As we said before, that energy flow from one organism to another, or it flow from one body to another. So first, green plants that take the energy from the sun are eaten by a mouse, and the mouse are eaten by a snake, and the snake are eaten by eagle. So the energy flows from the green plant, or first from the sun, then to the plant, then to the mouse, then to the snake, and then to the eagle. And when the eagle dies, the decomposers fed on its decayed dead body and decompose it into nutrients that turn back to the soil and then back to the plant. So it's a cycle, it's a chain that keeps going. So from the above food chain, we can conclude that the first link in the food chain is plant, which is considered as producers, because it uses energy from the sun to produce its own food by photosynthesis process. Then the second link here is the mouse, which is considered as primary consumer because it eats plant. Then the snake is considered as a secondary consumer because it eats mouse. Then the eagle is considered as a tertiary consumer because it eats snake. And finally, when the eagle dies, it decomposes by decomposers, and its energy is returned to the soil, which makes the food chain continuity. Energy flow. Another example of a food chain. A green plant makes its own food using energy from sunlight. A mouse eats the green plant to get energy. And then the snake eats the mouse to get energy. And finally, a hawk eats the snake to get energy. So conclusion, the energy from the sun passes to the green plant, then to the mouse and snake, then finally to the hawk. Green plant can make its own food using the sunlight, while animals like mouse, snake, and hawk, predator and prey. In the previous food chain, we can observe that The hawk and snake are predators because they hunt other animals. The snake and the mouse are prey because they are hunted by other animals for food. So both predators and prey pass food and energy through the food chain. And some animals can be a predator and prey at the same time, as the snake in this example. The snake is a predator when it hunts the mouse, and it's a prey when it is hunted by the eagle or the hawk. Note: any animal that is hunted and eaten by another animal is called prey, and any consumer that hunts and eats another animal is called predator.